I don't know if it's, oh, there it goes. Okay, sometimes the video kind of sticks and it doesn't start, but here we are. All right, week 2. You guys all made it through week 1, so that's fantastic. I've been having a lot of fun reading through your intros and kind of scrolling through some of the discussion posts that you've been putting up there. So that's really encouraging. So thanks a lot for participating really well in week 1. I do want to give you a heads up. I will try to grade as much as I can on Mondays, so you should get most of your grades early in the week, so you can kind of judge where you're at throughout the, as the weeks progress, so you can see, how your grades are doing instead of waiting to the very end of the semester. So I'll try to knock those out today. But here we are, week 2, another weekly update. So I'm going to talk about a couple things today. Most importantly, our first paper. I'll read through that paper description, talk about a couple different things that are in the modules, and then sign off for the week and let you have the rest of the week to work on your stuff. So let's go through about a couple of the things that you have to do this week. Let's see. We've got the weekly update, obviously, which I'm doing right now. You do have a discussion post about the weekly update. This will be a weekly response. You didn't have that last week necessarily. I mean, you did. You had to introduce yourself. But moving forward, you're going to have to respond to something that I'll say in the actual weekly update, which I'll usually give you a prompt. Sometimes I won't. But this week I will. I'll wait till later on in the weekly update, later on in this video, I should say, to actually give you the prompt. So hang tight. Building suspense. So you'll see that in just a few minutes. So that'll be in there. So keep an eye out, or an ear out, I guess, for the prompt. I'm going to talk about the paper in a second. Also in this week's module, you have to look at 3 sample papers. I like giving you samples so you have an idea of what you're shooting for, or what some of your goals are in the paper that you'll be working on. Remember, we have 3 papers. So this is the first of the 3. So that's something to keep an eye out for. Let's see, what else do we have? We have some more reading. Excuse me. We have a reading from our textbook, chapter 3, pages 33 through 61. Then you have a video. It's me talking about logical fallacies. The different kinds of logical fallacies that we'll actually be working with for this paper and this section. And excuse me for that video. I did shoot it a couple years ago, and I do tell some terrible jokes about it's not Pirates of the Caribbean. I can't remember what movie it was, but I was talking about it in there. So it's slightly outdated. So I apologize for that. But the info is still pretty good. But just ignore the dated movie references if you can. Then you have a discussion post talking about logical fallacies. After that, you have a bunch of links giving you examples of logical fallacies, a bunch of videos that you can watch. I will give you a heads up. There's one further down on the list that's not really safe for work. It's pretty F-word heavy. So I just want to give you a heads up. Probably not the greatest to watch if you're at work or if you have kids. It's probably one that you might want to, either have the volume down or some headphones in or something like that. I didn't mark it on there so you know which one it is, but I just want to let you know. And then finally, you have a quiz. Remember we said last week a quiz is not really a quiz, but that's just how it's noted on Canvas. So I'm just using the same language in the syllabus and in the modules so you don't get confused. But they're just study questions from chapter 3. They're actually from our textbook, but they're just reproduced in the actual quiz on Canvas. All right, so let's see. Let's take a look at this paper. I'm going to be looking back and forth on the screen, so if you're wondering what I'm looking at, that's what I'm staring at. I have 2 screens open on my computer right now, so I'm kind of scrolling my eyes back and forth. All right, so our first paper is Fallacy Summaries with Examples. And your job for this is to find 5 fallacies. And I'll talk about what those are, like I said in the other video. You'll read a bunch about it in the reading for this week. But this paper really helps you kind of dig into those ideas, helps you find examples on your own, and also see where they're spotted in our everyday use. So you need to find 5 fallacies, and I have a list at the bottom of the paper example, or the paper description, which the paper description is on Canvas. When you click through the modules, it should be there. It's also under the Assignments tab. It's also under the Files tab, so there's lots of places you can find it. But the fallacies are listed at the bottom of the paper description. So you need to find 2 examples of each of the 5 fallacies that you select. So you have a total of 10 examples that you're looking for. Then you need to write 300-word analysis per fallacy. You don't have to write 300 words per example. You just have to write 300 words per fallacy. So you're looking at 1,500 words total. All right, so if we're looking at about 250 to 300 words double-spaced per page, so you can kind of get a good idea of how many pages you'll be writing or something like that. Document design is 12-point Times New Roman or Calibri font, really just anything that's pretty standard, like when you open a Word or anything like that, like something that's already in there. Nothing, like wingdings or any sort of calligraphy or cursive font, something that's just pretty standard. It's 14% of your final grade. It corresponds with Chapter 3 from our textbook, and it is due Sunday, May 28th, so you have a couple weeks to figure this out. So I just want to give you some good time to actually jump in it, ask questions if you have them, stuff like that. So how am I grading this paper? I am looking for strong, effective, and correct examples of logical fallacies. So you do have to pick 5 fallacies that you feel like you know pretty well. And you do have the option, there are lots of them listed, so I encourage you to play to your strengths to find the ones that you feel most comfortable talking about and that you feel most comfortable actually finding examples of. So because you are, if you do have an incorrect example of a logical fallacy, that will count against you. So you want to make sure that you are feeling confident in the logical fallacies that you select. I'll be grading your summaries on your ability to define and describe the fallacies in your own words. That's really important. I don't want you copying or quoting the text from our book. I do want you really explaining it in your own words, because that's a challenge. Anybody can actually just read something from the book, but it's really difficult to actually, understand it and then try to explain it to somebody else. So that's really one of the goals that we're trying to do in this paper. If you use examples of the logical fallacies we've used in class, so you can't use any of the examples that I've posted on Canvas, you won't have success from this project. If you use a textbook definition or definitions from outside sources of the logical fallacies, you also won't have success on this project. So you need to really make sure that you're focusing in on those 2 things, that you're not finding samples that we've used in class that you'll be looking at this week, and that you're also making sure that you're defining the logical fallacy in your own words. That's very important. All right, moving on. So you have a checklist here. I always like making checklists for myself. I have my little planner sitting right here, checking off things that I do. So I always try to make checklists for assignments, so it helps you kind of focus in what you need to do. You have select 5 logical fallacies. The next thing on your checklist is to find 2 examples for each logical fallacy you selected. And then write 5 summaries, like I said, 300 words per fallacy, not per example, in which you discuss both examples. So you're discussing both examples in 300 words. If you go over, I have no problem with that, but you are not expected to. But I just want to let you know, some people have classes where they get penalized if they go over the word count. I have no problem if you do. Again, you're not expected to, but I just want to throw that out there. All right, let's take a look at a couple more details. First thing, select 5 logical fallacies and find 2 examples for each. In order to become more familiar with different types of argumentation, it'll be helpful to apply our reading to some real-world examples. For this first assignment, select 5 of the logical fallacies discussed in Chapter 3 of Weird Things, our textbook. The fallacies are listed below and also detailed in Chapter 3. So let's jump down on the assignment description. And so here are the eligible fallacies that you can use for this assignment. You only have to choose 5. Don't choose more than 5. Just choose 5 total. So we have begging the question, false dilemma, equivocation, composition, division, appeal to the person. Here we go again, my allergies. Jeez. Oh, sorry. Get some hand sanitizer again. Okay, where was it? Appeal to the person, straw man, hasty generalization, faulty analogy, false cause, slippery slope, genetic fallacy, appeal to authority, appeal to tradition, appeal to masses, appeal to ignorance, appeal to fear, misleading averages, missing values, and hazy comparison. So there's a lot of them you can choose from. Again, you only have to choose 5. In fact, only choose 5. That's all I want to see. So again, look at the ones that you understand the most and work with those. So play to your strengths. All right. So for each of the 5 logical fallacies you've selected, you must select 2 examples of where it's been applied. So for instance, if you choose begging the question as one of them, you're going to find 2 examples of begging the question. You can gather your examples from any type of sources, videos, advertisements, etc. Maybe you see it printed, maybe you see a video of it, maybe you see an ad, all sorts of different ideas. But make sure you provide a way for the class to view or locate it. You might do a screenshot, you might have a link, something along those lines. It's important to know that your examples cannot be personal anecdotes. So you can't say, hey, this one time my friend and I were having a conversation and they were arguing about something and this is what happened and that reminds me of this appeal to tradition. No, it really needs to be something where we can actually locate it. So they have to be in the media or available somewhere where we can actually spot this. So you can't use any anecdotes. Additionally, you can't use examples that are used in class as samples, which I already said. Some advice on how to find examples. Sometimes it will take a keen eye to spot these fallacies, but for others it'll be quite obvious when you see them. And I think that once you start reading about them, hearing the definitions, looking at the sample fallacies and looking at the sample papers, you'll be able to see like, oh, okay, I know what you mean now. You'll be able to spot them with no problem. You might run across an example unintentionally. When you think you notice an example of the fallacy, just kind of jot it down where you found it. Maybe take a note on your phone or write it down somewhere, and then you might be able to come back to it later when you're actually sitting down working on the paper. I went over the list of these. Actually, let me take a brief moment to give you the prompt for your weekly response for this week. What I would like you to do in your weekly response is actually talk about some of your goals that you would like to get out of this writing class. Maybe what have been some of your past writing experiences, some of your past writing failures and successes, and then what you think you would like to accomplish at the end of this semester. So that's what I would like to see in your weekly response this week. Okay, let's actually go back to this paper assignment now. So we went through that list of the different fallacies. The next thing on your checklist is actually to write the 5 summaries themselves. So in each fallacy summary, this is what I want to see. I want you to include a description of the summary you're using in your own words. Again, I'm emphasizing that a lot, and it might sound like a broken record, but it is really important. Don't just copy the definition from the book or find your definition from an outside source. If you do this, you won't have success on this paper. Then, I want you to explain how the example uses the fallacy. So why is this fallacy that you found, why is this example you found a good example of the fallacy that you're discussing? So your explanation should point to specifics from the media source and why exactly why exactly it's a strong example of that particular fallacy. So you might say, oh, I'm using straw man, here's why this specific advertisement, kind of shows how this argument falls apart or really is a weak type of argument, thinking about the straw man definition. Finally, so you have 3 components really. You have to find a definition, so you're explaining the fallacy, you're explaining why or how the example is a good example of that fallacy, and then finally you're suggesting one way that you might be able to make the example more logical. So if you were to, let's say you were in and you find an ad, and let's pretend you were in the boardroom or whatever for the advertising agency. You're like, I think I could fix this. And so how would you fix the logical fallacy? Something that you could do, you could tell your readers why the logical fallacy was faulty. If you're reading the assignment description, I skipped a word. It says why the logical was faulty. I meant to say why the logical fallacy was faulty. And what you might do to fix it. So those are the 3 things you're doing for each summary. Remember, you're doing 300 words per fallacy, not per example. So these will encompass each of the fallacies. So you're going to, remember, do a brief description in your own words, explain why each example is a good example of that fallacy, and then what you would do to fix each fallacy. So if you think you got about, if you break it up, about maybe 100 words per each one of those tasks that you have to do for each summary, if that makes sense. And again, once you look at the sample papers, this will make much more sense, I think. And then just a little quick note about the paper layout. This is also in the paper description. Your paper should be laid out in the following way. You should have the name of the fallacy first. A lot of people just put it in bold. You can do it however you want. And then have the name of the fallacy, have the examples of the fallacy. So you might have a link, you might have an image, but just have those immediately after the name of the fallacy. And then put the summary of fallacy and example. Right, so you're going to have your summary right underneath your examples. And then you're going to repeat that for each one of the 5 fallacies you've selected. When you're looking at the samples on Canvas, you'll see that they're actually done online. And I did this just to preserve anonymity for the students who have submitted papers. But you don't have to do it that way. Just submit it as like a Word document or whatever. And I put a little note in the tab on the modules to say like this will be different than what you submit. So just submit a Word document or whatever. Now, if you haven't used Canvas before, you will know that when you actually go to submit your assignment, what you're going to do is you're going to go to the assignments tab, or again, you're going to probably have like a little to-do reminder in the top corner of Canvas. You're just going to click that, and there should be a little blue button that says submit assignment, and that'll kind of drop you down on the page. And what you'll do is you'll just upload a document, just like you would a document to attach something to an email. It's identical to that. You know, you're going to click upload document, and then like that little pop-up box will come up, and you'll search for what you want to attach, click that, and then make sure you click the blue submit assignment button. I will remind you of this next week. When you go to submit your paper, I will get a notification that says, oh, so-and-so submitted an assignment. I will forward that notification on to you. I will only forward the major assignments, papers 1, 2, and 3. I'll forward those notifications to you. That way you know that I received your paper. If Canvas is being cranky, obviously you can just email it to me. That's no problem at all. If you are one of those people, like I'm one of those people that like to submit things like in both places just to make sure that I've done something, you can email it to me and you can submit it on Canvas if you want to. That's no problem by me. So that's paper number 1. If you have questions about that paper, just email me, please. Oh, where did I go? There it is. I just clicked out of the camera. Just email me. You can also post it on the Questions for Kim discussion board. That's fine. But let's see. Anything else we have this week that I need to talk about? I think that's it. All right. So just make sure you're working through module number 2. I'll be posting grades today, working on that stuff. And I hope you have a great week. And if you celebrated Mother's Day, if you're a mom, or if you celebrated your mom or anything like that, I hope you had a great day yesterday. And we'll see you this time next week. Bye.